I don't want to tell you how to live, but let me gently recommend that you attempt as best as you can to not be a piece of shit. That's all. Just give it a try. I think you'll find it super rewarding to you and everyone around you. I'm not saying there are negative consequences for being a dickhead. We see people all the time being absolute turd gobblers and still get whatever they want. No, the goal of being a non-chode is not wealth or fame or rewards. The objective of curbing your impulse to being an ass. The objective to curbing your impulse. Sorry, I got to start that again. The objective of curbing your impulse to asshole up a place is simply peace of mind. One of the reasons we watch horror is for the exploitation. The revenge thriller, right? The rape victim hunts down every attacker and kills them violently. The slave escapes and then firebombs the plantation. The Jews burn up all the Nazis in a theater. We sit through story after story of sons of bitches, son of a bitching up the place because we know in the end, Pamela Voorhees is going to get her head slapped off like an Anthony Davis block shot at the backboard. We want to see these fuckwits do all their fuckery because we want to see equal justice and even more land upon them. Horror by nature can tend toward moralizing, of course, but at its heart, horror is exploitative. Horror with a happy ending often is dark comedy. Horror without a moral message is often classical tragedy, but horror with a comeuppance is horror. The 1965 horror anthology Dr. Terror's House of Horrors is moral exploitation. It's a Christmas Carol, but without the redemption arc. These 5 dudes on the train are total butts, and they get theirs in the end, but not before being publicly called out. Cancel culture is real on the 755 train to Bradley, y'all. Hi, Cecil.
Hi, Jeffrey.
What's your favorite horror trope?
We've gone through so many on this podcast, Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I love an ancient, dusty, giant tome of magics that you have to like throw down on a table and like cobwebs and dust fly out of it. And they're like, let's go to the book.
Oh, I like that too. Any type of like a sort of cursed object that's going to set shit in motion is pretty great.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, I mean, I also sort of hate it because it gives me, makes it hard to fall asleep. But I'm a big fan, if I'm watching a straight up horror movie, of just shit happening in the background. Like somebody in the background, you can't quite see their face. Yeah, that
or
sort
just
of
somebody
thing.
walking like through a doorway in the background, unbeknownst to the characters.
We might have had that in this movie. But yeah, I like the, especially in like early 2000s J horror, there's a lot of like creepy ass kids standing in the background. You just can't quite make out their face. That's pretty dope. That's a really good scare.
Yeah.
Cecil, we again did not get a guest this week, but we did get an aerialist, a TikTok star, a podcaster, a voice actor, and a resident vampire expert of this show. We got a Symphony Sanders. Hi, Symphony.
What's up, creeps?
Hello.
It's nice to bring you back on to talk Vampire. I was a little worried as I was watching this movie because Vampire does not come until the end, and I thought maybe we did this wrong. Yeah. Well, obviously, Symphony, you know a lot about and you love vampires. Outside of vampire, what would be your favorite horror movie trope? Like device or object or whatever.
Oh, I love when my favorite thing, and when it's the shit's about to hit the fan, when somebody's like walking around their house or they're somewhere and they just like hear a noise and they're like, hello? And then they go investigate it. They go investigate it. The first time I hear a noise, I am out the door. Burn it all down.
I think related to that one, which is also one of my favorites, is you guys stop playing around.
Oh, I know. Or they'll be like, Jeremy, you're not scaring me, Jeremy.
Like, it's like, no, Jeremy's not playing around. Jeremy's gone.
Jeremy's dead.
And left the building.
Yeah, and then they find Jeremy with like an axe buried in his skull. That's so good. It's classic. I'm like, girl. And I am that person at the movie theater who's like, don't go in.
What was the quote? It's unreasonable to expect any character to ever understand the genre that they're in. And yeah, just any type of person who has no idea that they're in a horror movie is just, that's a banger. That's an all-time favorite for me.
I'm just never gonna investigate anything. Like, I'm like, that's weird.
What do you do if
I,
you're in your house alone and it's late at
uh-huh.
night and you hear something that's not the ice machine, it's not the refrigerator,
Mm-mm.
but it's something weird?
I am leaving.
Yeah.
I don't care what time of night. I could get a hotel and then have somebody look at it in the morning, lock it up, and leave it, and lock it up.
You're calling your super. You're like, there's some unreported or
Yeah.
unknown weirdness going on in my apartment. Could be bats, could be vampires. I don't know. You got to go check it out.
Also, I think because I am a crazy person about locking the doors, I know it's not like if I hear a noise, that's not right, because I have checked the front door lock, the back door lock, all of the windows at least 3 times, smudged around them with some like with my crystals. Nothing's getting in here. And if it is in here, I'm getting out of here.
Not even a severed hand that knocks on the door and then you open the
Okay.
door and then don't see the severed hand.
It's because it's slow down.
You thought it was a person.
I'm going to tell you, that was the one thing I was impressed by. I was like, oh, look at them back in the 60s or whatever, doing the animatronic like inchworm with the hand. I was like, this hand inchwormed so thing could crawl
For miles. It makes that hand made really good time.
It will follow you. It jumped on your car. It's gonna grab you up. You gotta stab it. It's gonna jump through your window. You gotta throw it in a fire. It comes back. No. But you know what? I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, the vampire thing happens at the end, but I am a lover of all horror of the genre. So anytime you want me, baby, I'm right here.
Awesome. You can help us answer the eternal question, which is how do werewolf work? We will get to that at the beginning.
Lord.
Bitch, I was like, that's a dog. What the fuck? What are they talking about? Werewolf. I wrote down, I was like, werewolf ? After he said it, I was like,
like
no.
a husky. Just
Yeah.
looked like a little husky got loose in their house.
I did like that little turn though.
Okay, so this movie is an anthology. We got to this by Anthology Horror Meets Vampire, which check and check. We did it. I watched this movie on Tubi. I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but I was a little thrown back because we immediately get the title card and it is in German.
Oh yeah, Dr. Schreck.
Yeah,
oh, I don't
Die
know if I got it in
Todeskarten des Dr. Schreck.
Wow.
I know. I was like, oh, Shrek. Shred.
I was like, Shrek is in this? Is Donkey there too?
Wait, is this the Shrek rave? Is this the Shrek rave?
This is the Shrek rave. Yep.
Oh my god, this is the most tame Shrek rave I've ever been to.
It's just a train ride with tarot cards. That's the Shrek rave.
Yeah.
So we're at some like London train station, and these boys are all getting the 7:55 train to Bradley, and it is 5 men that all share a train car, and then a 6th man sort of hops in at the end, and this is Peter Cushing with fake eyebrows glued on. He is looking all grizzled. Is that the word? Is that the the word I'm looking for?
Sallow, one of those words.
Fallow? Yeah, I don't know. One
Fallow?
of those. Yeah.
All of those.
I do love his fingerless gloves, though. I was like, oh, bohemian chic is in, baby.
It must have, I think that was like his being like, well, I can't move the cards. Like with gloves on, you can't like, it would be hard to like articulate that. But it did also give that like traveler sort of vibe to it. I did write down that I was like, Misty dude rolls up last minute and is all misty.
He's super misty.
That's how you know he's the bad one.
I like this early on. We see Dr. Schreck, which means Dr. Terror in German. But yeah, he's there's a moment where he kind of scans the crowd of these 5 guys and the way that they all look at them. So we've got Scottish, we've got a couple of like faces that run together. We've got like Scottish Jim and English Biff and Donkiff.
Biff is a dick.
They're all just morons at best.
I did not like how they were smiling at each other.
So they we also get kind of our prime of these five guys is Christopher Lee.
Yay! Snaps to
Yay.
Christopher Lee. No one plays an asshole like Christopher Lee. Just like no one.
He has just bitch face, right? He just
Yeah.
he looks mean. He definitely looks like the guy that, like, if you walk in day one to your English intro class in college and your professor looks like that, you're like, oh fuck.
You're like, I
Yeah.
cannot fuck around in this class.
No. Yeah, and he was a snoot. He was like he just looks like he's turning his nose up at you from the second
Yeah.
you look at him. And he was like trying to avoid everybody, not get in on the conversation. He was like, he would have rather no one talked at all.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, he's I almost said balls deep. He's nose deep in his newspaper.
His balls deep in his newspaper.
In the
It's like,
Financial
I'm up to here,
Times.
man.
So at one point in time, it's Dr. Shrek falls asleep in his bag, falls to the floor, and it spills out tarot cards. And Biff is like, "Hey, that's a funny looking deck. How do you play poker with these?"
Biff is the worst.
No, I gotta say, the first time he holds up that tarot deck, there's like 600 cards in that tarot deck.
Yeah, what?
Joe
Right,
clock
it's only
that?
like 50. It's like 52
It's like-
normally.
Because
it's 22 major.
70 something. 70.
Yes. Yeah, it's not that many cards, but
But he
yeah.
pulls up this deck and it was like huge. I was like, what is going on there?
Well, and he also only ever draws like the major arcana out of it. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
actually he never draws like a 5 of cups.
No.
Like,
Right.
he just doesn't draw any of the spare cards. It's always like the hangman,
The lovers. Yeah.
the enchantress, or whatever.
The tower. And you're like, okay.
I also love, I do, like, as someone who, appreciates tarot, I love how simple this was in its tarot interpretation. They're like, judgment. There's an angel playing a horn. You must be a trumpet player. Aha. And I was like, Dr. Shrek, you crazy maniac, you're doing it. You're living the dream.
And also the literalness of the death card. It's just, yep, you're gonna die.
You're gonna die.
Also, yeah, every time he would be like, oh, I'm just gonna hide them. No. He's like, no.
No, I can't show you that one. Never
Right,
that
it's like,
one.
We've seen them bones. We see those bones.
So the rules of his tarot deck is he will tell your fortune. You tap thrice upon the deck
Yes.
of cards. He will shuffle them and then draw 4, which will tell your fortune. And then the 5th card will be how does he say it? The 5th card will give you the knowledge to change it, which doesn't really come into play, partially
No.
because we have the twist ending to this.
Right.
Spoiler, they're all dead.
Yep.
They all die.
Which, like, I know we're fast forwarding to the end, but this whole thing, this moment where they're all sitting around, they're like, wait, so every single person in this car is mortal. Whoa. You're going to die. I'm going to die. He's going to die. I was like, yeah, that's generally how people work.
How do
Right.
people work?
Yep. That's generally how this whole thing goes, is you live and then you die. That's, you have a story and then the end.
Someday
you will die.
some way.
I gotta say, y'all, this movie added years to my life. It really did. I think it was just the weird pacing of this movie, plus the fact that I'm watching it on some like janky Plex Tubi, freebie account that had commercials like every 15 minutes. But we were halfway into the story number 1, and I was like, am I 90 years old? Am I on the train? Am I dead? Am I British? What is happening? How long have I been here?
Yeah, it did feel its length more. It felt like double its length. And I don't know if it was just because there was like so much like exposition, like bullshit exposition. But I don't know. I was like, okay, I get what they're trying to get to, but they could get to it like more succinctly.
Yes. Yeah, they really, really, really could. This is a 90-minute movie, and it definitely feels
know.
much longer. I think because I always use the example of
That the Batman movie felt less than this.
yeah, and I think it's because there's going to be 5 stories. There's 5 men in the car with
Yeah.
Dr. Shrek, so 5 stories.
Right.
So when that first one is so slow paced, you're counting down. I think about like 20 years ago, Samad, I went to go see the play, The 3 Trials of Oscar Wilde, and it was a local Dallas production, and it was not great. Maybe the Broadway production was really solid, but this one, I remember thinking we were just like halfway into the first trial of Oscar Wilde, and we're an hour 45 minutes into this play, and I thought, I got 2 more trials. Fuck.
Like, are we gonna read the minutes? Oh my god.
So we get to this first story. Jim is the one who's like, yo, let's go. So we're gonna do our first reading.
Mhm.
So this is the story of Scottish architect Jim, and he's got a new client, Mrs. Biddulph, name I haven't heard before. I don't know
Biddulph.
her.
You know, the classic Scottish name, Biddulph.
But she's British or whatever.
Is she?
And she,
Yeah, I
and
guess so,
she
yeah.
like bought the house, but it's like his family home. It was his family home, and that's why he was requested or whatever.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah,
I think I missed that in the 12-minute exposition
Mhm.
because my brain just left. Like, it just left. I was like, wow, that's a really nice office. This is kind of like British men. Oh, we're in the countryside. What's happening? What's going on?
Mhm.
Like,
yeah, his boss
my
was
listening
like,
hat was not on last night.
Mhm.
yeah, his boss was like, oh, we got a new client for you. She requested you in particular. It's at your home. You sold her. And I was like, he sold her the home? That part was a little unclear, but like it was his family home.
Mhm.
And he like grew up there or whatever. And then he went there, and all kind of shit was weird. Because that girl at first was like looking at him like,
What?
all the
Valda,
looks,
Oh my
Balda,
God.
and the
groundskeeper
the little
Willie.
groundskeeper
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Creeping. They were looking so hard. I was like, bro, I'd be like, you guys are being weird. The lady was being perfectly nice.
She
Mhm.
was great. Actually, I gotta say, after Peter Cushing as Dr. Terror, like, she was, I think, doing the job.
Yeah.
Like, she was
Yeah.
like glamorous, gorgeous. You know, she's a villain, spoiler, but she was
Right.
like not playing I'm an evil villain trying to be
Right.
good. And her dresses were amazing. Like, jewels,
Yes, her outfits. Yeah.
gowns, like the whole thing. But these two side characters, this is why I love
Terrible.
and hate Hammer horror, is because everyone's you can't see this right now, but Symphony is giving hard eyes to the camera right now. Like, just people like having a normal conversation. Hi, how was your trip? Did you make it in from London? Okay, yeah, everything was fine. And there's just someone standing 2 rooms over
Lurking.
going,
Yeah.
You're like, do you want to join? Because we know we can see you. You're perfectly
Right.
visible over there in the corner.
Those
One of my
perspective shots were something weird.
One of my favorite comedy tropes, which this was done in The Simpsons all the time, which is you set up one such archetype and then you immediately flip it. So at the beginning, when Jim arrives at this house, we see, I think his name is Caleb, but I just wrote groundskeeper Willie. Like, it's just this like
Yeah, yeah.
creepy groundskeeper
Yeah.
guy lurking in the ferns, staring spookily at Jim as he gets to the front door. And then suddenly Jim turns and sees him. And so we're like set up to this groundskeeper as like a harbinger or something horrible. Jim turns, he's like, oh, hey, Caleb. Caleb's like, hey, Jim, how's it going?
Hey, buddy.
Ain't seen you since you were a kid.
Has that ever happened to you in real life, though? Would you like catch somebody looking at you and you see them seeing you, and then you're like, oh shit, we've got to either like make conversation or fight in this moment.
Fight.
Like, am I doing something weird? Are you what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. That was my whole experience in Germany. I'm like, hello?
They're feel like take a picture, it'll last longer.
I know I'm beautiful, but damn.
So, Mrs. Biddulph wants the living room wall knocked down. She's going for an open floor plan.
Yes, she is.
You
You know what this 16th century
Yeah.
floor plan? You know what this needs? Like some nice, like oaky, Scandinavian modern. That's I think
Yes,
we should
that's
do
right.
that.
I sort of
I'd like
was
a grand ballroom.
I was sort of laughing that Jim was like I presume that Jim is Jim property, meaning that he's the father of the Property Brothers, because this is 1965.
I didn't know the Property Brothers were Scottish.
They must be. This movie is their origin story.
From the Hebrides, apparently.
From the Hebrides. There's just a bunch of generally creepy things happening. Like there's a howling dog outside. And he said, "What was that?" I'm like, "Sir, that was a dog howling."
Hear anything?
What?
What? I hear nothing.
So he also, in the process of like looking through this house to figure out if this is a load-bearing wall in the living room, which it is likely because it has a fireplace in it.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
he's gonna still investigate, and he finds the door to the cellar. And they crack open this door, and I don't know why he has to be in the cellar to knock down a fucking wall. I don't know. I don't know enough about this sort of thing, but he goes down to the cellar and he finds, I don't know, like fake rock that's made out of drywall, and he chips it open,
Yeah.
and he
For
finds
a full
a coffin.
10 minutes.
For
a
a
full, like, listen,
long time.
We see the full renovation. This
He
love it or list
scratches it.
is like ready to go.
He taps it with his pipe or whatever the fuck. And he's like, scratch. Why he scratched it? He's like, I was like, okay. Or that maybe there were scratch marks on it, and he was like,
He's like, oh, that's odd.
Yeah.
yeah, girl.
And
Get
then
out
there's
of there.
like an idol of Pazuzu or some demon looking thing.
It was a coffin. Yeah.
Well, also during the scene, there's several moments where Caleb is just standing in the background and like in a doorway, and then just dips out of sight. And I'm like, you guys have to stop with the creepy haunted house effects. Like, we get it, it's creepy. This is now becoming hilarious that he keeps doing that. But in the cellar, Jim finds this coffin. He said, "What is this?" And Caleb says, "That must be the coffin of Count Cosmo Valdemar." How do we know this?
That name, like,
Cosmo
this is
Valdemar.
if you ever need to find me in a hotel, I will be checking in under the name of Cosmo Valdemar. I'm making all future restaurant reservations under Cosmo Valdemar, airplane tickets, everything. I'm changing my whole identity.
It's perfect.
Cosmo Valdemar.
So if you're okay, that's my thing about the hotels. Like, can you put the name as Cosmo Valdemar, but you have to pay because they always ask you for your ID and your credit card.
I think you can just tell the hotel, "I want my name." Like, you check in under your real name and ID and credit card. But I think you can tell the hotel, "Hey, for security reasons, I don't want my name here. So anyone who wants to reach me, I can only be reached under the name Cosmo Valdemar."
Yep.
From Harry Potter.
From Harry Potter.
Yeah.
No knows.
No knows.
Oh, man. This local legend. It's also like, okay, so we have a dude who is from this place, lived in this place. He's like running around as if he's never been here before.
Right.
Yeah.
Finds the secret entrance to the tomb and is like, what is this local legend? And how does he not know? This is so
well. He
bananas.
knows the local legend because he immediately is like, "Cosmo Valdemar, he's the werewolf. He, 200 years ago, said that my family stole this house from him and that he would return one day and get his revenge." He also knows that like this coffin was recently placed here. Again, Jim, you're in a horror movie, because even if nothing supernatural like a werewolf is going to happen, these people are fucking with you.
They're fucking with you.
Why is there a coffin down there when there wasn't a coffin there before? That's when you leave.
Yeah. You're like, I just got to go get something out of my truck, and then
Yeah.
And out.
If I was somewhere and we were like, oh, let's see what's under here, I'm gonna help you remodel your house, and we busted open, there's a coffin, I'm like, well, I gotta
Good
go to
luck.
the bathroom really quick. Oh, someone's calling me. Oh, hello, and then I'm gone. You'll never hear from me
You
again.
just pick up your phone. You're like, oh, I gotta take this. It's not even ringing. I gotta go.
Oh, it's on silent. You wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
Grumble, grumble, grumble. Goodbye.
See you in London.
Yeah, no, that's terrible. So then he's like they're like, okay, well, let's just leave it out here. We try bust it open, and they couldn't bust it open.
Well, and they can't bust it open, and
Right.
yet 30 seconds later, a gray hand just like comes up for air, as if it's like tasting the atmosphere, just not doing anything, just fingers.
Mm-hmm. Just fingers.
It's like that is a strong fucking werewolf mummy hand you got there.
Oh my god.
That's the other thing. When you untomb something, you can't just be like, no, well, let's go to bed now.
No.
Put it back.
Because again, let's assume there's no such thing as like supernatural horror happening in your life. That shit's gonna stink.
Oh
Yeah.
You can't
Or
just
also-
find a tomb in your basement and be like, well, we'll deal with that later. No, you go stay at the Howard Johnson that night.
Yeah.
And you get a contractor to come the next day.
Or you call the British Museum or
Yeah.
your local history and be like, cursed object or no? Because
Mhm.
I gotta live here and we gotta
Either way,
get
get this shit out of my house.
get it out of my basement.
You
Get
go talk to
this
the
dead bitch
HGTV.
out of my house.
You go talk to the HGTV producers and be like, y'all put this here?
Am I on camera?
Yeah.
I would love to see an Antiques Roadshow of like only cursed objects. People are like, I went into my attic and I just found this box with this weird looking doll that's like got stab marks in its face. How much do you think this is worth? They're like, oh, this piece goes very.
A guy
this is a
appraising
very
the
good
object
piece.
is just the crypt keeper doing his wild tackle.
Making like terrible puns every chance he gets.
Yep.
He's like, this item slays.
$50
Okay,
on the
so
open market.
Jim gets a note on his when
From Vale.
you said earlier, Cecil, that we were talking about how like slow paced these stories, especially this first one, is. But it's like wildly paced because it goes from like long exposition to suddenly he has a note on his bed from Valda that says, I must see you. The next thing we know, she's just lying on the ground dead.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what? Let's have some werewolf action. Like, let's build the suspense, not the exposition.
Yeah.
Is this before or after he shoots the dog that isn't there, that doesn't get shot?
This is before.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Valda's dead. So now he's like, I know this is a werewolf. I'm going to go down to that coffin again. I'm like, again, you can get back on the M4 and just go home.
Yeah.
Is what you can do.
Is it after he took the cross off the wall and was like,
this, then so that's well, he goes down first to the coffin and he gets his fucking hand scratched open by Cosmo Voldemort in the coffin. And then he's like, okay, now I know what's up. Let's get this cross off the wall. And he tells Caleb, this is made of silver. It was forged from the steel of the sword that was used to kill Cosmo. I'm going to melt it down into silver bullets to kill this werewolf.
Like in your spare time?
Yeah. Right. I wrote down, well, because it was like, it was going into the daytime. So I think he was like, it'll be back in its tomb. I guess, I don't know where that lore comes from. Isn't it just still running around? Anyways, I wrote, oh, now you're making bullets.
You know,
how'd you learn how to make bullets? Where'd you get the because doesn't it need gunpowder or something? Where are you getting gunpowder from?
Yeah, where it's like I want to know what what casting you're using to get the exact right size of bullet furnace, to fit into the shell.
The tongs. Don't you need tongs to do things like that?
He's
You
just
need
gonna
some
make it
kind
in
of
the
vessel.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Listen, he is
No.
an architect and he came prepared.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Sure,
Just-
Jan.
Sure. So yeah, so he's gonna make these fucking silver bullets, which he does like in an afternoon. Like it took me 30 minutes to like wire new speakers to my stereo the other night. I'm like, I don't know how he did this making bullet shit. But he does, and he tells Mrs. Biddulph, like, you better go upstairs and hide.
Mhm.
And so she does, and then he hears a scream and he runs up there, and there's a dog. There's just like a blue heeler like in the room.
It's like a white husky or something.
You just see like it's like a flash of dog face, and you're
Yeah.
like,
And he is like easily 6 feet at 8 at best away from this dog. And he puts like 6 rounds full fire into this dog, and the dog does not get shot and like runs out the door that is closed.
He stormtroopers the shit out of that dog. Yeah.
He does.
pew,
Um,
pew, 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 pew.
And then he's like, he turns to Mrs. Biddulph and he's like, the bullets didn't work. And Mrs. Biddulph opens her like now very clawed hand holding the silver bullets. And she goes, you mean these, bitch? And then
Oh no!
takes his ass down.
Also, like, why did she have on a black wig? she was blonde. Like, it was like a black, awful, straight bob, like straight, like shag cut. When I was like, girl, her hair was like molded blonde, like curls.
Well, that's the evil werewolf underneath
Oh.
the blonde wig.
Oh, okay. That's what when
Okay.
her wig pops off. That's
Yeah.
Wig reveal.
She says a dutiful wife would do anything to bring her husband back after 200 years. And Jim shrieks as he's eaten alive by a werewolf.
Also, when did werewolves become like a mortal, girl? Like,
And also,
how
when
they
do
live
they-
so long? They don't live
And
that
they need
long.
and they need a host. Werewolves don't need a host. What are you all talking about?
200 werewolf years is like 1400 human years. Like it can't live that long.
Like, I've been in this kennel for so long.
All right, interstitial. We're back on the train.
Woo! That was wild.
And Shrek turns the 5th card. I love calling him Shrek. I just want, if you haven't
Yeah.
seen this movie, I just want you to imagine Shrek and not
Yes.
Peter Cushing.
Yeah, just fully Shrek.
Shrek turns the 5th card, but he won't show it to Jim.
Oh.
We can all, but
Oh.
we, the audience, can see it is the death card.
Oh.
Mhm.
Now Biff wants to. Wait, is it
Oh,
Biff? No,
Biff.
this is Bill. Right. This is. Let me get these names right.
These
because
are some
the plant-
These are some square-jawed white men. Like,
Yeah.
their heads are shaped like potatoes.
it's.
Um,
I don't like having a Biff and a Bill. Like you
Yeah.
can't do this to us.
I
This
have
is
to
Bill,
note
though.
that after this story, the first story, and they get back on the train, or they're back to the train, Christopher Lee is like, "Don't listen to this confidence trickster,"
Like he's
and I almost shit. I was laughing so hard. I was like, "Confidence trickster," so basically he's calling it con man. But I was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, the language." I'm like, I want to call people confidence tricksters now.
I do too.
Like,
if I'm just in a
nobody
store,
does-
I'm gonna say that about a sales associate.
I
I
need
want
some
none of
sort of
this
confidence.
tricksterism.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Do you want to upsize that? That's all.
Yeah, that's all I was
30
asking.
cents more. That's all I got to know.
Okay,
This
so
story, you
oh
guys,
my
what
God.
what is this?
This one was so dumb.
This is so silly.
Like, this wasn't even a story. Like, I was like, is
No.
there a beginning? It was like a beginning and a middle, and then it just was over.
They
I'm
got
gonna
back from a vacay,
yeah.
and
yeah.
everything went to shit.
That's the entire storyline is husband and wife and daughter get home from a vacation. There's a
Yep.
creeping vine,
Yep.
and eventually the vine overtakes the house and kills them all.
But, like,
yes,
Probably.
Why did they let the one guy, the scientist,
yeah.
he like was waving the fire and he got away? I'm like, why didn't you guys follow him out the door, girl?
Yeah.
right.
Or burn something else and get out of the house? Y'all are just like, no, we're going down with this shit. No.
I feel like this was like a weird mashup of The Birds and Day of the
Yeah.
Triffids.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about like The Birds is that it actually tells the story of what happens to the people, not just like, whoo, one of us made it out, and you hear the car drive away and you're like, now all we do is wait.
I was like, wait for what? The house to crush you in? I thought it was like a little like The Happening.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
yeah.
So this fucking
yeah,
Vine,
terrible.
I love this. I kind of like this one almost the best because it's so stupid. And
Yeah.
it's got some really silly effects. So, Bill's wife, Anne, is like, you should cut down this vine when you have this weekend. He's like, okay. So he goes to like chop it down with the hoe, and
Oh
the
my God.
vine literally goes, ow.
It says ouch. And it's off camera. And she's like, what was that, darling? It's like, I swear this vine cried out in pain. It did. And there's like, that's odd. And then they pick up the shears. This is where
this one.
I laughed
I
so
could
hard.
not contain myself. That vine smacks those trimming shears out of his hand. I don't know what. It was a poison chalice is what it was. And they're like, you just saw that, right? Okay, listen.
And that's when you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Burn it all down.
Yeah. Burn it down immediately. I'd be like, oh, okay, there's a problem. This somehow is rejecting this. No, babe, you can't come into my house like that. Where did this thing come from? It was just there when they got back because they hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
What we had like some like listen, Roundup is a problem. Like we don't need to be using Roundup these days. But I'm gonna say if there is a reason to use Roundup, here it is. I think that's your trick here. Like you have to have weed killer. You have a garden, right? I mean, are we fully? This 1965 English family surely was not fully organic in their garden growing.
They're like homeopath. They're like putting out like cayenne pepper and shit to like keep the aphids at bay or whatever.
Just lobster shells is what I do to till the soil. Yeah, for Christ's sake. So they go and like find scientists.
Oh my God. This is some of the best 1960s sciencing. Like I think I've seen in a minute.
If animals can evolve to protect themselves, why not plants? We have these kinds of plants and those kinds of plants and these kinds of plants. But now what if there was a different kind of plant? Oh, and they bring the friggin' guy to their house and he's got a microscope that he just carries around the room. Girl, this is not science.
Checking like he's got like this. It looks like the plant looks like poison oak. Like it's just a branch. Like it is an oak branch, maybe a vine, but really just a branch you'd find on any oak tree. And he's like shoving it up under the microscope, and I'm like, I don't think that's how you make slide. I don't know. Where did you go to university?
I'm like, wouldn't you like cut off a little piece, and then put it on a slide, and then use a little liquid,
iodine
and then
or whatever,
put another thing, like color contrast. Anyways, he's looking at this thing. It's got a brain in the leaf.
Yeah.
in the leaf, in every leaf.
Did you pick the one leaf?
This is the brain stem of the plant.
And if he had the brain bit, like what was the other part doing?
I also like how did they get the clipping of the thing? They know this plant is sentient. It's spoken to them. Mm-hmm. It has moved independently, and they're like, you know what? Snip. Here, we're like, it just what is going on in this family?
I also don't understand wherein they don't try just cutting it down again. Right? Because it did two things. So it said ow, and the second time it slapped it away. So Cecil, if I ran up to you and I'm like, I have to, like, we're in a knife fight. We're trying to kill each other. We're enemies. And if I stab you and you go ow, like, well, I'm going to try again. And then if I try to stab you and you slap the knife away, if I'm able to regain that knife, I'm going to just keep trying to stab, right? Like, that's how this works. But they, like, it one time slapped the shears away and was like, there's nothing we can do. We clearly cannot cut this thing down.
You must study it.
At one point in time, there's the daughter. I don't even remember her name.
Mhm.
Carol. Her name is Carol, which is my cat's name. So little Carol is out playing with her dog Rusty. Mom calls her in for dinner. Carol just like yeets the ball in the air and it lands
Oh my
next to the
God.
He was like,
plant. And the plant chokes out Rusty the dog.
Now now listen,
Mm.
that dog noise was not coming from that dog. That was literally somebody in a sound booth going, woof, 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 woof. Like that was a human being saying the word woof over and over again.
100%.
Also, why are you letting your daughter play in the Garden of Death?
Yeah.
Right, you know the plant is already like bad. Like, why are you doing
You've
that?
got scientists in your studying this thing very weirdly, but you're just like, yeah, go outside and play. What's the worst that could happen?
She's in like a super fun site now. Like this is like, why don't you go swim in the Gowanus, kid?
Yeah.
Like I just don't. I also love later. God, this is so corny. But later, like Carol's looking all glum, and Mom approaches her and it's like, "Why don't you go outside and play?" And in my head, I'm like, because there's a murderous vine.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
But Carol says, "'Tisn't any fun without Rusty."
Oh,
After she takes her glasses off, though,
I know.
she like
Yeah.
takes her glasses off very like, "'Tisn't any fun without Rusty." I was like, girl, acting.
Yes.
And that child was Meryl Streep. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? She will later play Hedda Gabler this season.
So then Science Man gets choked out as well. The guy with the portable
which we're all
microscope.
just waiting for. Like like really this entire conversation with the girl is happening. We're like, we know blonde science guy is
Yeah. Andy Daly's getting choked out in this room. And I'm like, what? Can you show us this? I want to see the actor play I'm getting choked by a rampant vine. And we don't get to see it. I'm very disappointed in that. I wanted to see this actor put up the fight.
Yeah. I also loved how like it's just like a vine just reaching towards the camera, supported by nothing. Like, how does the plant know that it? Why? It's just
It can
have so many
feel
questions.
its brain leaf. It can feel its brain leaf being like touched.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, that branch is very thin. I could bust that apart.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't going down because of some plant trying to choke. Girl, no. I will be like, wow, wow, wow.
Can you imagine if they had come at it with like a lawnmower or any kind of like, motorized equipment?
You can't slap away a spinning blade. Yeah. Jesus. Well, they think, well, what if okay, well, also the vine cuts the phone line, so they can't call the police. Although I'm like, to do what? To do what?
How do you know what that is, plant? What is your end game?
So they start a fire with some newspapers, and then other science man just gets free. I mean, I think the reason the plant lets him through is because the plant doesn't know what to. Because the way this scene works is the guy sets the paper on fire and then walks through like a torch, and the plant is backing away and clearing a path for fire guy. And then he gets free, ditches the paper, just chucks it on the ground and runs. And the vine is the last thing we really see is the vine hovering over the paper and going, "Oh, I can just put this out with my leaf."
It just sort of stamps it out.
Pat.
Yeah.
I love the line where they're like, "That's right. No sentient thing that is alive is like it could be frightened by fire. If ever anything were not frightened of fire, God help us all." And you're like, you're just coming, really? This is like on your list of what to do, like fire's number 2?
Oh, so dumb. That's the end of this story. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
They're just sitting there. I'm just still mad that they just like, he's walking out the door and they're like on the couch, like hugging. I'm like, get up.
Do something.
Stand up.
All right. Interstitial. We're back on the train.
Woo.
Again, Dr. Shrek won't show Bill the 5th card, which is death.
It's death.
So now it's time for Biff, not Bill, but Biff, the jazz man.
This one.
Man, fuck
Okay.
Biff.
Biff. Fuck Biff.
He's the worst.
Now we're starting. So our first two stories are kind of these guys are more dummies.
Yeah.
Right.
Than that. Now we're getting into these next three guys are stupid and evil.
Yeah.
Right.
Like morally corrupt and or
Yes.
bankrupt.
Yes. So, okay, this is the story of Biff and his agent. He's a kind of a loungy jazz quintet or whatever. He plays the trumpet, and his agent says, "Hey, I got you a gig in the West Indies, in the Caribbean."
And
He's
he
a West Indies.
snaps.
Okay. The West Indies thing. He's like, you're going to the West Indies. And then he does this horrible, like racist,
Yeah.
but like he does it like India.
But he's just an Indian.
Yes.
He does an Indian like accent. And I'm like, bro, you're going to the fucking Caribbean, you moron.
Everything about this, like, this is where I was like, have we made a horrible mistake? I mean, this was also like where I, as a host of this podcast, asking you, Symphony Sanders, a Black woman, to come on this show, I was like, oh my God, I've got to send her like a fucking gift basket or something.
No. Yes, I will accept a gift basket. But no, this was, I mean, I think this is very reflective of that time and the mindset. Like, honestly, I mean, the UK was still very like a colonialist sort of like thing. So, I mean, it wouldn't have been, but I was just like, oh my God. But it made, like, in that second, I had no empathy. After that, I was like, I hope you get murdered.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
let me say this let me ask this, which is because this reminds me a little bit of, we covered Hostel last month, and you know, Hostel follows, our central characters are the most douchebaggy American fuck shit stacks, right? And they are they're terrible people, and the movie knows that. And so it's annoying to watch them, but also we know that the movie knows that. And I feel like while this story 3 about voodoo is sort of toothless as horror, I do think it's aware of what a piece of shit Bill is, because Bill doesn't know the difference between Indian and West Indian, makes a racist voice, and also immediately goes to whatever island and steals their fucking shit.
Yeah.
So I feel like the movie itself didn't feel like it was, the movie at least I guess to me, and I don't know if y'all feel this way too, that this short film actually was aware that this is bad behavior.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's why he was like, so like everybody came for him. They're like, really? And he's warned a number of times not to do what he eventually does, and keep disrespecting the like voodoo and the gods and all this stuff. And they explained to him. So I think they're very self-aware of like what's going on. So I think that was like it's like cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Don't be a Biff, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be a Biff.
Well,
how I hear all of that, and I think, you know, this is the lead up to, oh my God, he's like, how many transgressions can this guy, you know, like, okay, you know, don't insult people's religions, don't sneak into religious ceremonies and start taking notes, don't pass off that work as your own, don't do rewrites of sacred texts and in some like London Soho jazz club. And so the story is like, we all know he's going to get it. So I think you're totally right. Like the creators of the film are like, okay, this dude's a Biff.
Yeah.
He's gonna get it. Like, let's get, and you know, the teasing out is, oh, is it this? Nope. No, that was just a strong wind. Oh, is it this? Nope. Just a person asking for a cigarette light.
Yeah.
However, the end was so, like, I think you said toothless, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Like, like it was like a non-ending.
That the guy just came and took the music and was like, and
see you later.
left.
Yeah.
Like a god shows up in your apartment and is like, yoink, I'll take that back. And
did he kill him or just knock him down?
No, the guy, he just passed out of fear.
Yeah.
Like Biff is such a wuss
bitch.
that like
Yeah.
such a bitch that he just passed out when this guy
Yeah.
approached. The basic story of this is just that he goes down there, is told like there is a voodoo culture here. They do stuff in the in the jungle at night. There's going to be ceremonies. If you're not invited, don't go. He goes. He goes and writes down all the music that they're playing. He starts notating it. The people from this area surround him, take him to essentially the shaman, who is like, hey,
Right.
don't steal the music from the god. And Biff's
It
like,
cannot be written. Like,
yeah,
it
you cannot write
be
this
written
down, and you cannot monetize it. And he's like, but we'll split it 50-50. I'm like, you don't get 50% for transposing music. And then basically that's it. And he takes it all back to London, proceeds to like play it in front of a London audience, which causes a thunderstorm. And then later a fucking god of Damballa show up and just yoink it out of his hands. That's the whole story of this film.
I was getting flashbacks to King Kong.
Yeah.
In that, like,
Mhm.
in that, like, it's, sort of like, white European explorer goes to place that's, complete ecosystem, complete culture. And it's like, okay, but listen, what if I give you 20% off the top? And they're like, no,
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I think the unsung hero of this, like this, the shining light of this third story to me is Sammy Coyne, played by the
Right.
singer Sammy Coyne, played by Kenny Lynch.
Mm.
So here we have this movie that is mostly all white men. But here we have kind of a super reasonable black character with a lot of lines and a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
not magical or mystical. He understands that there is magic in the world, but more importantly, he understands, don't fuck with shit. Just stop
Yeah.
fucking with things. That's all I'm going to tell you. Like, don't do this.
Yeah.
And Biff keeps doing it. And Sammy's like, I told you so. And I love the moment when the whole concert in London gets foiled because by Biff playing the music, a thunderstorm comes in and blows a bunch of wind through there and make everyone skedaddles. At the end, as Biff leaves, Sammy just starts playing the funeral march on the piano.
Yeah. I also like his strong head shaking, like when he's sitting at the table with the manager. He was like,
Oh
"So
yeah.
we shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing this."
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Biff's rendition of the song is going, he's just like, no, this is everything about this is wrong.
Yeah.
I need to get the fuck out of here.
Well, maybe Biff, he was like scared to death. And the guy took
that's it. I think that's
Yeah.
the idea. I wish there was more of a visual given to us, like he clutched his chest, like
Yeah.
he went in
Yes.
a heart attack sort of mode. But it just looks like he gets scared and falls asleep, and the voodoo man
But
is
like
like,
that's the whole MO of the movie so far, is that everybody has these ambiguous deaths.
yeah,
Because they're like, wait, I meet a werewolf woman, and then what? I get trapped in a house by carnivorous plants, and then what? I call down a god, and they're like, and the last card is death.
yeah.
They're like, or die. But
Yeah.
they are all gonna die because
I
he doesn't even
guess.
give them the opportunity to do the thing.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I do love the interstitial after this one because it cuts back to Biff on the train. And he goes, well, that'll teach me not to steal tunes. So how do I get out of it? And I'm like, how do you get out of it? Don't steal tunes.
Yeah.
That's like the story
Don't
itself gives you
steal
the instructions on how not to get into this mess.
Don't steal tunes.
my
Have you
God.
ever
Right.
taken a lit class? Like, have you ever just read a story?
Like, okay, so I understand in Romeo and Juliet they're in love and they die, but how do they not die or fall in love?
Anyways, Franklin Marsh is over all of this shit. This is
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Lee as
Yeah.
the snooty up his own ass fart critic, the fartsy artsy critic, and Franklin Marsh is like, fine, foretell my destiny. Again with the language, Christopher Lee, so good.
I love that thing. Like, he finally gets him to do it by like saying, "Are you afraid?" And that's like the line. He's like, "What? Me?
Yeah.
Afraid?
He's
Give me
like,
those
chicken.
cards.
Nobody calls me chicken.
Like, yes. All right, McFly.
Marty. Yeah.
You're like, wow, I guess we found your Achilles heel there.
Oh.
Oh,
But yeah, the critic, he's an art critic and he's an asshole. And he really just seems to bully this one artist.
mm-hmm.
And he's like at his art show, like with his little cronies, his little art cronies being like, trivial.
Yeah.
This is
You know what I love?
pedantic.
I love art, but not when it's like this piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like,
And I was actually like, oh, this is actually kind of nice.
I know, I quite like that. This I was like, oh, it's actually
the
good.
black.
I don't know if I
and
would have
white one.
cropped it that. I think I would have,
Yeah.
used more canvas, blank space around the canvas. But
yeah, he tells this artist, Eric Landor, he's like, the only advice I could give to you, Mr. Landor, is to give up. It's just, and all of his like little mean girls surrounding him are just, they're watching like
Tittering.
Glee. Yeah, and which I understand, because all of what Franklin Marsh does is he's a fucking train wreck. Like I think they're partially just enamored with like, I want to hear what he's gonna say next because he's such a bitch to this.
they're in it for the gossip. They're in it, yeah.
Well, the gallery owner lady, she's like, Mr. Marsh, we have a new artist that I would like you to see their work. I would love your opinion on this. So good. So dope. And she shows him the work and he's like, actually, this is quite nice. Look at the color balance. Look at the shades. I think it's very witty. And may I meet such an artist? And they're like, here he is. And it's a chimpanzee. And everyone laughs.
God.
Gotcha, bitch.
I love it. It's like this artist clearly throws away all convention, and then that mockery of conventional art techniques, he has achieved something great. Is this feces? What is this? What is this material that he's using? Is this banana? What am I looking at?
I don't know. understand this medium, but it's revolutionary.
Also, why do they have a chimpanzee in the back of their?
I don't know.
Their art gallery, like ready to go. It seems like I can't remember the actor who plays the artist, but he has like shit-eating grin down
Yeah.
to a T.
Yeah.
Like he kind of looks like Martin Short a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But like evil British Martin Short. But you know that this was planned. They're like, okay, this guy's going to come to my gallery again, and he's going to talk shit about me again. So let's set him up to get punked.
I fucking love this montage that follows of Christopher Lee off doing all of his different art bitchery that he's doing, and Landor keeps showing up to mock him.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, like he does like paper doll cutouts of chimpanzees and like holds them up. Christopher Lee's like, I suddenly remembered I have another appointment.
I have to take a long shit in the bathroom. But then by the end, he does that again. And then by the end, literally, he just has to like show up in a place. And Christopher Lee is so ashamed. Like he doesn't even have to say anything, which is like, that's some hardcore intimidation right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, sometimes that's how bullies are. It's like, you're like, I'm supposed to like you were cowing me for all this time. It's like, and he can't take the heat when it's coming to him, and so he gets so mad about it, and apparently the only way he's gonna hit him with his car,
right?
Yeah,
you're gonna run him over.
He runs him over, and his hand squits his hand right on off.
God.
Yeah, the doctor. And they're on the thing. He's like, who's this guy? And they're like, oh, it's so and so. He's an artist. And the guy goes, artist? Not anymore.
I'm like, oh my God. You're like, have you ever seen My Left Foot? Like, do you know,
Jesus
what?
Christ.
Like, this is bananas.
Surprisingly, Christopher Lee feels really bad about it.
Yeah,
but I'm like, then why'd you hit him with your car?
I think he's like, he seems to be like, he's turning on the radio, trying to like listen to the news. It's like, is he implicated? See,
Oh, okay.
Like he's trying to find out if there were any witnesses, or
Oh, I see.
if the artist guy got the make and model of the car that ran him over and severed his hand, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But not before. And then it's just like a shot of the artist standing in front of his studio, just like weeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where like the manipulativeness of horror, it's like tough sometimes, because like cultural attitudes change every, I don't know, decade or so. So like some things fly and some things land, and some things do not land and some things do not fly. Because this guy just kills himself.
He just
Yeah.
shoots himself in the face.
And
Well, because he doesn't have anything else to live for, because he can't do his art anymore, which is apparently was giving him life. But I was like, you have another hand, babe.
right.
I was going to say, if you listen, let me just take a moment to give you an inspirational speech. If you can shoot yourself in the face with a gun with your left hand, you can paint a new picture with your left hand.
Yeah.
Yes, you are not, just because like you mainly use like your, like if I lost my left hand, I would still be able to do stuff
Yeah.
with my right hand. It doesn't mean your other hand is not useless.
No.
It just might be like might not have the dexterity right away, but like if you don't have the other arm to use, then
Also, like part of your whole career is gonna be about the narrative of you as an
Yeah.
artist. Like this is a thing we
Right.
recognize in the 21st century very well,
Yeah.
that art doesn't exist in a vacuum, that the artist is themselves the thing. So all I was thinking about, like, don't shoot yourself, like your comeback tour
Your next gallery,
is
oh my
gonna be
God,
amazing.
your next gallery show
Yeah.
is going to be the shit. It's like
Yeah.
the only thing, this is like the only thing that I could compare it to is like a writer getting put in jail. Like they always say that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like famous writers that get put in jail because it gives them time to like write, and like it changes, takes their art to a whole nother level.
Jeffrey, you want to go to jail?
Write that memoir you've always wanted.
Yeah.
That book of poetry.
You're like, I just need time.
I also wonder if this is like post World War II. Well, no, if this is post World War II, like stigma against people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Like, which is not, I mean, like this has been around for a long time, but like it's like coming like 20 years off of World War II. Like, I don't know, just like it's hard to understand, like in 2023, like what this would have played to a 1965 British audience.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Also,
we
like,
I think
just
read up on
paint
Rick
more-
Allen. Like, learn your Def Leppard here. Just learn how to. Lots of people have overcome a sudden
Yeah.
injury
Yeah.
and disability, right?
I was just chalking it up to him being an artist and sensitive about his shit, and he was just like,
so.
Yeah.
I can't go on, and then whatever. But like, or maybe he was actually, we don't know this, he was imbuing
Oh yeah.
the death trauma
Yeah.
Mhm.
into his thing hand. He's
It's
like,
it
I'll
was more
get
revenge.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
as soon as he dies, like literally as soon as he dies,
The inchworm of death comes.
oh my God.
it is crawling on the bench seats of Christopher Lee's like 1957 Plymouth or whatever, and it's just like crawling next to the headrest on the passenger side. And he sees it. He does not slow down. He, in fact, hits the accelerator and starts swerving all over the road and slapping at it like he's got a wasp in the vehicle.
Oh my God. Like, what?
It's so good. It's so stupid.
And then he does it again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because
He
like
fights it like 4 different times.
Yeah. And we even get like the Pee Wee Herman version, in which it's like just the dark, it's like dark and rainy, and you just see like a sign that says Twisty Road go by. And then another sign that says even Twistier Road goes by.
Yeah.
And then the hand just appears on the windshield wiper. Oh my God. And the camera flips around in a circle.
My favorite though was the fight in the office where he threw it in the fire though. Because as an actor, like like there was the part that did the inchworm, and that was like the mechanical thing, but that was not the thing that was like on his neck. Oh, the one where he stabbed it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he threw it in the fire. Anyways, but it's like jumped on his neck, but he's just holding it,
Yeah.
and like rising about. He's like, God, that's the only thing I wish I could do, like that, and like be on Star Trek and when like something gets hit by like fire, and you're like, oh, the ship gets hit by like a shot by like a phaser or whatever,
And everybody just goes,
you're
whoa.
like, oh, photon torpedoes, and you're like, oh, brace.
I mean, horror is so funny
Yeah.
when you don't think it's scary. You know, like if you just look
Yeah.
at the nuts and bolts of it, you're like, I'm literally just watching a Shakespearean classically trained actor wrestle with a gray putty hand by himself.
Yeah.
Just full tilt. This is comedy or scary. I don't know. Both.
Yeah.
Well, the end result is that he stabs it with a letter opener, throws it into like an attaché case, chucks that in the river, thinks he's fine, and then it shows up on his windshield on a dark and stormy night. He again hits the accelerator while screaming. He has to crash that Honda baby, and basically, I love the Hitchcockian twist ending here, wherein the paramedics show up. The pair of medics show up, and they are putting him in a body bag into the back of an ambulance going, well, he's still alive, but he'll be blind for the rest of his life.
Right. I'm like, did it pluck out his eyes?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I was more, I heard all of that, but what I was watching was the completely dry crime scene. Like, because we know it was raining. I was like, what is, how is, there's not even mud. Like,
no,
where are we? Which again, these like stock, like when it, like these Hammer horror, Amicus horror were like known for churning out so many of these movies. They're like, I don't know, does it make sense? Who cares? Just make it anyway. That like continuity is like non-existent, and I love it.
It's so fucking wild. All right, interstitial. We're back on the train, and Franklin Marsh looks a little shook.
Looks a little shook up.
And again, the 5th card is drawn, and it is again the death card. So now they're all like, well, there's only one of you left, Donald Sutherland. And
the way he looks, he's like, me?
Me?
Do I have to do it too?
And then he kind of stares him down as basically he's like, bitch, let's do this. Fine, let's go.
Young Donald Sutherland is mesmerizing. Yeah. And I know we're watching him in, like some of the schlockiest, like probably one of the schlockiest horror movies we've had on the show in a minute. But I was like, I can't stop staring at your face.
It's interesting when you mainly know someone as an old person.
Yeah.
And then seeing them like actively moving around as a young, it's one thing to see pictures, but when you see like a video of someone when they're like younger, because you're like, I recognize you, obviously, but it's weird to see what you looked like back then, but his hair is like so like golden blonde. It like almost looks like a wig to me, I think, because I just know him with like gray.
Yeah, like Hunger Games, like Donald Sutherland.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's how, in my mind's eye, that's what he looks like. So it's weird. It's like when they do like the holograms, not holograms.
But like Star
in
Wars
movies.
and
When they make them young again.
Make them younger.
Yes.
The
it's
Marvel
always
Cinematic
so
Universe.
strange to me. But he's coming home carrying his new wife across the threshold, his new French wife.
Oh,
Nicole.
yeah. Oh, mais oui.
Nicole.
It's an American costume. A costume.
Costume.
No, costume. No.
Costume.
He's like, I love this too, that he got this new French bride. He brings her across the threshold and he says, welcome to Pemberton, the prettiest little town in New England. Oh, dear.
Ain't never heard of that.
No. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, friend, this is Worcester.
Also when he's like, are you hungry? And she's like, yeah. And he goes and pulls a can out. Girl, I was like,
of like old El Paso refried black beans or some shit.
Right. I'm like, what are you're just expecting her to eat out the can? What the hell? She's
That's
French.
Okay.
She is French. You met this woman and you think she's gonna want canned beans or whatever the hell.
That's okay. All she eats is red wine.
That's right.
Her entire diet in this entire film consists of red wine.
And
She
well,
does
and
have
finger
little
blood.
bites of food.
She gets his
Yeah.
finger blood. She gets a little
Yeah, she
protein
does.
snack off of
She's
his
like-
fingertip because
She
he cuts
kisses it
his
first.
he cuts his hand on the can opener. He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I gotta clean this up." She says, "No, let
No,
me do
let
it."
me-
Feed me, Seymour.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. We've seen this a number of times in other vampire movies where the person doesn't know they're a vampire or whatever, and they're just like, you can see their eyes kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, when someone's
quickening.
bleeding or whatever.
uh-huh.
Yes. But the lore in this one is so funny because they come in full daylight. Full,
Yep.
full daylight. And then all this stuff happens in the night, like where she goes out and turns into her bat form, which is
Oh,
it's
this
just like
bat.
floating, like
Uh-huh.
It like a seagull. It looks like a seagull
yeah,
on a string. It's
On a
really
string.
what it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
But immediately
it's-
I knew she was gonna be a vampire.
yeah, we know this from the like this movie could also be titled "We're Not Fooling Anyone." Like none of these stories like come out of left field at all. Like they're pretty standard, like grounder to short, toss to first, play over. Like
yeah.
that, they're real basic things.
Like
and
when he's like, there's a boy at the hospital who's suffering from anemia, and you know all the blood goes to the blood bank. She's like, and where is that blood bank again? It's like it's on the corner of First and Main, and there's only one guard, and he only works from this hour. She's like, oh really? She's like practically writing it down. It's like, honey, do you want to see a movie later? She's like, no, I'm so tired. I must go to bed now.
so
She's staring at his steak and stuff.
Are you
He's
sure
like,
you
"Do
don't? Are you
want
sure you
some-"
don't want it? No. Are you hungry?
He asks her if she wants more steak. So she's
Okay,
eating
okay.
something. And generally, vampires in movies don't eat.
Yeah,
Don't
because
eat
food
like
is for the living.
Yeah.
right. And it'll like a lot of vampire lore that you'll see is like food actually makes them sick.
Yeah.
You know? But she's able to eat little bites. And I wonder if he never chalked it up like her barely eating anything. He just chalked it up to her being a slight little woman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was that she only eats steak tartare because she is French.
And a vampire.
No. Cannot be.
yeah.
Cannot be. Impossible.
Yeah.
So, okay, so all right, this movie's not fooling anyone. We know who the vampire is, but now we get introduced to Dr. Blake. This is Bob's other doctor friend.
Yeah.
Cecil, as you mentioned, there's like a very pale young boy who the problem is not that he has a blood disorder. The problem is he doesn't have very much blood at all.
Oh no.
And they also noticed 2 giant bite marks on his neck.
Oh no.
Yep.
And Dr. Blake's like, one might think, and this is funny, but hear me out. One might think he was bitten by a vampire. Knee slap.
Oh.
I also like that, like one of the aspects of like determining how healthy he is like, is he getting fresh air? And she's like, oh yes, he sleeps with his windows open. Just telegraphing where this child is, how you can gain access to him. Like, whatever.
And she's like, am I doing
also-
something wrong as a mother? And he's like,
And
no.
he's like,
No, you do exactly that. Next shot, he's there with a pistol aimed at the window. I was like, damn, he is taking this real seriously.
Uh-huh.
I will take note. We will take note though, when Dr. Blake first came over to the house and met Nicole, she was looking at him like,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Staring
Yeah.
daggers.
yeah. So that was our indicator before. I mean, I did not necessarily think that until the end, and I was like, oh,
Is this
okay.
because we're gonna get to this at the end of the story, but like the way that he reacts to her and she reacts to him.
Yeah.
Are vampires like snow leopards? Like they need like
Yeah.
a 200-mile radius of no other snow leopards around them?
Well,
Is that
I
how
mean,
vampires are?
No, like vampires a lot of times have nests,
Yeah.
and they'll have like multiples, or if there is a solitary like vampire in a city or something, it depends on the lore, but like you'll see them have like a sort of like almost governmental structure, be like
Hmm.
there's like
Hmm.
a king of the city type thing, and he's got his
Yeah.
own little underling vamps and all that stuff, and it like allows you to like do whatever, but basically make sure that like number one, you don't oversaturate the area. There's not like just dead bodies showing up, because then they'll be smoked out, like,
Yeah.
or that they aren't being revealed to the humans, because like if you spook your food source, they're going to come after you. So I think that like generally that's the thing. So I wonder if, because it's like a small town, that's why he's like, I can only
Yeah.
name one,
Yeah.
type thing, because otherwise people are going to be, it's going to be too obvious. But like, yes, sometimes vampires are solo, but like a lot of times work together. Like there'll
Okay.
be like a small nest or like a couple of vampires or whatever. And but or like even in Twilight, they have a whole family of them. You know what I mean? There's like six of
Yeah.
them in that town. In like a lot of like even like 40 Days, 40 Nights, which was my first show with you guys. That was a family, a group. They're not
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
nest
A
of
pack. Yeah.
vampires. Right. And yes, there are solo vampires, but even like Interview with a Vampire, Louis and they're like together, and then they bring in Kirsten Dunst and all that stuff. So sometimes they'll create like small groups. A solo vampire tends to be a little bit more like they're solo because either it's a really small town or they are a recluse for some other reason.
Yeah. They do
Usually
seem
because they're sad.
territorial
Yeah.
Yeah. I
because,
guess the territorial
they
thing.
know that if too many people start going to the hospital with acute anemia,
Right.
then people are going to get suspicious.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. There's only so many resources in a small town, so that makes sense that both of them would be like, this town's not big enough for the both of us.
I also
So
feel like when you're talking in terms of like eternity, you're gonna piss off you could be best friends with your next door neighbor vampire, but eventually one of you is gonna like fuck up,
yeah,
and you're like, oh my
Right.
god, this guy.
yeah,
Either you need to
And
go
draw
or I need to
attention to you.
go,
Yeah.
or
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I think he could have made it work though, because as a doctor, you have access to like a blood bank and stuff like that. They could have like worked together, especially it being his friend, but he was a selfish one.
yeah.
why is he drinking from the tap? Just be like, oh, your son needs to come in, and we have blood drive. This blood drive this year should be
Right.
bigger
Right.
than ever.
Yep.
Right. Like organizing that stuff. But back to when he was in the room with the little kid who's asleep, and he's got the gun waiting for the girl to come, the bat to come. Why is he shooting off a gun in this kid's room?
I don't know, man.
He literally fired the gun, and the kid didn't even wake up. Suspicious.
I think it's like standard 1960s doctor medical kit is like, stethoscope, the thing to hit your knee to test your reflexes, and a snub-nosed pistol.
We saw that in Day of the Triffids, right? Where the doctor goes blind. He's like, fetch my medical bag. There's a 38 in it. Like, why?
Like, damn. All right, Doc Holliday.
Are you putting down
Why?
horses at the racetrack? Like, I don't understand.
Right.
So Dr. Blake tells Bob, listen, your wife's nice enough, but she's totally a vampire. Yeah. Yeah. He does like the arm cross.
Also,
Yeah.
how did he do the arm cross if he's a vampire
I don't know.
and not be shunned away?
Well, that's the yarn that he's spinning to Donald Sutherland. He's like, I made the sign of the cross, and then the bat just disappeared. So
Yeah.
that it must be a vampire, because vampires legendarily hate crosses.
Well,
But we
was
saw it.
bullshit.
It wasn't just he told him. We saw it though.
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know how he did that. My concern was less to do with like confusing vampire lore than why Bob hears the doctor say your new bride is probably a vampire. The way you kill a vampire is here. I made you a sharp wooden stake. I just whittled it for you.
In
So
like
when she
30
goes
seconds.
to sleep tonight, just run this through her heart. And he's like, okay, and he does.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like,
No
how did Bob get
investigation.
so easily convinced?
Right.
He's like, well, gosh, I never thought that my wife would be a vampire. This is all very sudden, but if I must, I must.
Yeah,
And
he just like is willing to believe this guy.
so yeah, he believes this dude and he stabs Nicole in the chest with the thing and with the stake. And the next thing we know, the police officer's just showing up.
Who called the cops?
Well, good question. Dr. Blake,
Mhm.
The doctor.
probably. But the police are like, the fuck did you do this for? Vampire?
It's like, my wife
The
is a
fuck is your
vampire.
problem?
It's like, everybody knows my wife is a vampire. You told me it was a vampire. And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, man.
He's like, what?
Blake's come back. Yeah, he says, Dr. Blake will vouch for it. He told me to do this. And Dr. Blake says, there's no such thing as vampires. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my
I've never been
God.
attacked by a vampire in a patient's room or nothing. So the police
Oh,
Take him away.
haul away Bob, and then we see Blake standing out in front of the house, watching along very softly.
so good.
But he turns to us.
And he says, this town isn't big enough for 2 doctors or 2 vampires. Arms outstretched.
Wong, 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 wong,
Flap,
wong,
flap,
wong,
flap,
wong,
flap,
wong,
flap,
wong,
flap,
wong.
flap.
Like so bad
Fucking hell.
and so
like-
good.
Uh-huh.
Get rid of both of the competition in one fell swoop. 2 birds, 1 stone, 1 stake.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
as it
that's
were.
right.
2 birds with 1 stake.
Yeah. When I was watching this with Chris, he was like, I swear to God, I've seen this on Son of Svengoolie. And I was like, I believe that.
What is Son of Svengoolie?
You know Svengoolie?
No.
He's a guy, maybe it's a Chicago thing. Okay. He's a guy and he wears like a mustache and he wears this black hat and this like black wig and he does like spooky, like really
it's
bad,
like classic
old,
late night
bad
bad
movies.
movies.
And he's
Okay.
like, oh,
He's definitely a Chicago thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah. And it's just like you would watch scary movies and they're always like bad, but he like makes weird jokes. Like it's like very Elvira,
Uh-huh.
It's
But,
Elvira
like,
or Fright
not-
Night.
but not sexy.
Yeah. Because you've got
He's in no way sexy.
yeah, he's in that same pool of people like Elvira and Joe Bob Briggs, right?
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah,
he's just playing a certain type of horror lover.
Yeah.
I've never seen his show. I'm familiar with him vaguely.
Oh,
from
it's
his
brilliant.
look. When you say Svengoolie, I know exactly what that guy looks
Okay.
like.
Yeah. It just looks like it's obviously like a costume
Hmm.
type thing that he's wearing. It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just really fun.
Okay,
So-
epilogue, y'all.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
All right, so we kind of have the Bob's moment. Shrek was like, "Do you know a Nicole Bob?" And he's like, "Well, I did meet someone on the continent." And then he reveals that the 5th card is Deck, and they're like, "Is Death?" And they're like, "What about you, Shrek?"
What
Yeah,
about
what
are
about
you? And he says, "Have you not guessed?" And the train like goes through a tunnel, seemingly. Like, there's a moment of darkness,
Yeah.
and then the lights come back on, and he's gone. And then they're all at the station. They're all like, "Well, we must be at Bradley. The train has stopped." I'm like, did this not stop at like Tottenham Square Road? Like, I don't know. Like,
there's
like,
no
right.
other
stops
no
on
other
it. Yeah.
stops. It's also like this is the 7:00 train, and it is like, are they on a sleeper car?
I don't
Yeah.
know. What a commute for work to have to go
Yeah.
from London to are they like 2 hours away? I don't know. So
Yeah.
they Shrek is gone when Dr. Shrek is gone, but like all of his stuff is gone except for the death card.
Oh.
And they get off at the train station at Bradley. Then they look around and it is empty and there's no train. And they're
This
the only
set.
ones there.
There never was a train.
The set is like it's like a William Inge play. It's like it is
Yes.
so
Yes.
abstract realism. There's like like gobos and oh my God, it is.
Yeah, I was like 2 red lights in the back. I was
Yeah.
like, are those supposed to be the signal lights, girl?
And it's just like the end of the tracks. You're like, oh my God, this is gonna be the best community theater production of Picnic I've ever seen.
And so much missed.
It's so much missed. Yeah, so much stage fog.
So much. And then he shows up again, like by the fence.
Yeah.
And but this time he like flashes from being like that guy to like just bones with like missing
bones.
teeth.
Yeah.
Just bones.
Like a
Skeletor.
skeleton
Even-
with missing teeth.
Or like even better is like they're like, oh, we made it. Oh, here we are at Bradley. And then just like a random newspaper rustles, just like falls into Donald Sutherland's hands. And he's like, what does this say? It's like, train crash, 5 men dead.
Babe.
Like, okay.
Babe.
What?
Babes, no. And then like I'm like, oh, so you're just gonna follow him out the fence? Just be like, well, dead now.
That's it. That's why we're dead. That's why. So then, like, why was he telling him all these weird stories? So this is really about death. This whole movie is just about death, fucking with people to fill time.
Yeah.
He's like, look, I gotta reap 5 people tonight. But
Right.
like, why not like give him something a little entertaining and teach him a lesson about life and how not to like appropriate, other people's culture or be a dick in your profession or
Yeah.
kill your wife or get a Roto-Rooter, like let's just fuck around. Let's just fuck around for the next hour and then we'll get down to business.
Whistle while you work. You should be
That's
having
it.
fun at your job. Yeah. Try to find
Like,
little
give him
ways to have fun.
Give
Honestly,
him the old
Dr.
razzle
Terror,
dazzle.
he's the protagonist.
He is.
Yeah.
He's like,
shepherding these
"Watch this."
idiots to the other plane.
Watch this. That.
Shall we rate this film?
Yes, let's.
Yeah,
So-
sure.
On the Sasha scale, our squeamish approachability scale for the horror averse, how approachable is this movie? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least approachable and 10 being super approachable. So like if Hostel is a 1, I would
Yeah.
give Dr. Terror and his House of Horrors like 9 silly bat puppets out of 10. Like it's just it's silly and campy. Like it's got enough like horror tropes to be like I don't know. I don't know anything scary about this movie, but it does have a very adorable dog death with somebody going woof woof,
Aw.
Woof,
and
woof.
it does have a suicide in it. So I don't know. It'll be 9 instead of 10, I guess. But honestly, like it's a good Svengoolie movie. It's a really
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
In fact, actually, this I would be surprised if this wasn't at some point in time on Mystery Science Theater 3K. Like it's super
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, 9 out of 10 for approachability. As a horror film, Cecil, what do you think?
Oh man, as a horror film, this one's a little bit tough because I know that there's like classier Amicus Hammer horror films out there that are a little more coherent. There's also other anthology horror films that follow the same pattern of they were all dead to begin with. Oh no, that are maybe a
Mhm.
little bit tighter
Yeah.
because the pacing is all over the map. Like
Yeah.
story number 2, it didn't really end. As far I was like, oh, we're done. Oh, we're just done. Okay. So I don't know. This is maybe not the best of the Hammer horror anthology films you could find. Did it have some moments that were truly laugh out loud hilarious? Yes. And so for that, I give this 7 pieces of oak on a microscope slide.
Perfect. Symphony, what about you? Would you like to rate this movie? How good they did vampire, how well they explain werewolf?
Oh my goodness.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a if 1 is like the like the best lore research you could possibly do, and 10 being they just made a bunch of shit up. I would go a 6, 6 dog faces and 6 full daylight vampires.
Perfect. Let's figure out what we're gonna watch next. Cecil, you got a Cecil, you got a scare die. I have a style die. We'll roll those up, match those two things, see what movie fits. So if you roll a 1, Cecil, our next movie's scare is witchy. 2, alien. 3, a lady killer. 4, tiny blank. 5, evil science. Or 6, zombie. What is our scare?
That's a 1.
Woo!
Witchy. All right, we're going to get a
Witches.
good, solid witchy scare. All right, so my style, if I roll a 1, our movie's got to be found footage. 2, action fantasy, something that bends the genre a little bit. 3, a movie from the 1970s. 4, a period piece, something that takes place outside of the time it was made. 5, wild card, whatever witchy scare we want. And 6 is, Euro horror. So let's see what our style is. I've got a 5. Wild card witchy.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Finally got that wild card. All right.
Woohoo!
So we're going to do. All right. Well, here's the thing. Let's say the movies we put on here, and we can.
Wait, I have to make a last-minute adjustment because we actually previously rolled one of my witchy choices. So I have to put here, I have to just think of a witchy movie really quick. What's a good
Well, while you're thinking of that, I will talk about the witchy movies I put on this list. So, and Symphony, feel free to jump in if you're like, oh, you need to take that off and replace it with this other one. But here are the witchy horrors I put on here. I put on Haxon, which is like a 1920s, very early, almost like found footage style movie about the history of witchcraft in the world. I just think it'd be kind of dope to do this old silent film. It's supposed to be real spooky and weird. Another one I put on there is a movie from 1 or 2 years ago. It was a Shudder original, super independent film called Hellbender. It's made by, I believe, folks from, like, a family makes these movies together. It's like independent horror filmmakers from upstate New York. But Hellbender got a lot of really, really good reviews. It might be a little low budget is the only thing, like, in its appearance, but it apparently is very good. And another one I've never seen is Robert Eggers' The Witch. The V Witch.
Oh,
The Witch?
And we have not covered for this show. So those are 3 that I put on here. Cecil, you've got 3 on here too.
Okay, so I put on here Season of the Witch, 1973, which is
George
a
Romero?
movie made by George Romero, and it's kind of gets lost in the shuffle of all the other George Romero films a little bit, but I think there's something really cool about it. The one I just added is the Dunwich Horror, which is let's see, this was made in a time, and that time I am not seeing it right now. This was it's very culty Cthulhu, expert in the occult, it's Dunwich Horror, but it's very witchy cult leader.
1970. With Ed
1970.
Begley and Dean Stockwell.
Yes, Dean Stockwell's real good in this. And then the last one is The Blood on Satan's Claw, which is British, and it's very kind of like Witchfinder General. It's been getting a lot of like recent sort of tread because it's like a staple of folk horror, especially for British folk horror, and it's one that I have not seen that I'm really interested in seeing.
Interesting. All right, yeah, I've heard of Blood on Satan's Claw before. These all sound really fantastic. Symphony, are we missing anything off of there? Like, is there some other movie that you're like, you absolutely need to hit this witchy thing?
I feel like a lot of the witch movies I watch are usually with the witch as the protagonist and not the antagonist or about that. Or like the persecution of witches, So I don't watch a lot of I haven't seen a lot of but those all sound like really good items. I mean, I'll watch The Craft any day.
Well, I was going to say, like, I'm looking at all my choices, and they're all very like 1970s, and I wonder if I want to like take one off and transplant it with something more modern, or if I just that's how I'm feeling. I'm going 70s right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like, I feel like on mine, like Haxon fills that kind of like early horror
Yeah.
thing that we could always do.
Mhm.
Hellbender, I feel like I want to keep that on there because it's like
Independent.
independent, contemporary, and then The Witch just because it's a major part
Yeah.
of the major arcana of modern horror. Um yeah, The Craft is a good one. I don't even
I
know
know.
why,
Yeah.
because I've never
Okay.
seen that either.
Oof.
Oh,
You've never
it's a
seen The
pretty
Craft.
I've
Okay.
never
All right.
seen The
I'm taking
Craft.
off Dunwich Horror and I'm putting on The Craft. That's all I needed to hear.
And you could also
We
do, this is a wild idea. If you wanted to, you could circumvent it. We could still do the roll. Do we want to circumvent and just go right to The Craft just because it came that's our left field? We didn't get a twist in this movie after 5 attempts. We could have a twist in the movie selection process.
I
Or
feel
should
like
we do fair and roll it up like we always do?
I mean, listen, this is our podcast. You've not seen The Craft.
Okay, yeah.
We watched something that was, pretty schlocky and kind of fun. I feel like this is an opportunity here.
That's perfect. Let's just do
And
The Craft.
it's
Um,
iconic.
yeah.
It is so iconic.
Doing a quick search. It is available to watch. I assumed it would be, but I'm always surprised at what is not available for
That wild
streaming.
card was all aces, baby.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cecil, for talking with me. And thank you to our Symphony Sanders. Symphony, where can people find you and your work in this world?
Anywhere you have the internet, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, I guess, at Symphony Sanders, or you can listen to any of the podcasts that I am on, including Good Morning Night Vale, where you can join me and my tri-hosts, Meg and Hal, to talk about one of our favorite podcasts. Welcome to Night Vale.
If y'all have thoughts on Dr. Terror's House of Horrors or Shrek, just in general,
Shrek raves.
Shrek raves. If you've been to the Shrek rave, please let us know. Or if you have ideas for other movies that would have been what would be your wild card witchy horror movie, let us know on Instagram or Twitter at randomhorror9 and watch The Craft from 1996 with us this week and come on back next Tuesday for a new episode. Have a restful night with no white people stealing your music or nothing. Boo.
Ooh.